So let me start today with this question. Why is the beginning of the NFL season so important to the teams in the league? Now, obviously, winning is a big priority. You don't want to start 0-3. Chances are you won't make the playoffs. That's a fact. That's proven. Statistically speaking, if you start 0-2, 0-3, you're probably not going to get there. But I'm talking about an overarching theme within the NFL. It's not just about winning. It's about who am I as a team? What's my purpose? How do I win games? How do I lose games? How can I avoid that? What is my identity? That's a big point of emphasis for the NFL and its teams for the first 5 or 6 games. For example, Kansas City, they know who they are as a team. They know how to win games and lose them. They live and die on Patrick Mahomes and his arm. They're a pass-first team. That's how they win. Baltimore, another example, run-first team. Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins. All they do is pound the pavement, and that wins them football games. They know who they are. They're established enough to know who they are. They've gone through periods of trial and error. Now they have an understanding of how they can win football games. When you get to that point as a team, that's when you become a Super Bowl contender. Think of all the teams who are vying for a Super Bowl right now. Think of all the teams we talk about when we think of the Super Bowl. All of them have an identity. All of them know who they are. They know how to win games. They know how to lose them too. And what to do to avoid that. They know what they're doing. The question here in Chicago has always been, what is this team? And for the first couple of weeks, no one talked about it. No one cared because we were so focused on the quarterback controversy. We were so worried about who was going to start at quarterback that we didn't bother to think, wait a minute, does this matter? How does this team win games? And on Sunday against the Panthers, I think we finally saw what the Bears' identity is and what they need to do to get to a possible Super Bowl. Defense. If you're familiar with the Bears' history, you know this is nothing new. The Bears' defense is the reason they've only been successful in history, and the run game to an extent, but mostly the defense. 1985, 2006, 2010, 2018. All of those years, you had outstanding defenses, and believe it or not, okay quarterbacks. The Bears have never been a team that needs a Patrick Mahomes. It would be nice. It'd be nice if the Bears could draft a good quarterback, but believe it or not, it's not necessary. They don't need that. That's not their identity. I did some digging, and I really want you to pay attention to this if you're just tuning in or if you're wondering what I mean by this. I compared the stats for Jim McMahon, Rex Grossman, Mitchell Trubisky, and Nick Foles. McMahon represents the 85 Bears. Grossman 2006, Trubisky 2018, Nick Foles 2020. Okay, I want you to listen to what I have to say here. Rex Grossman's passer rating the year the Bears went to the Super Bowl was 74. Jim McMahon's was 83. Mitch Trubisky's was 95. And Nick Foles right now is 80. How's this for a stat? Only 2 quarterbacks out of those 4 even had completion percentages above 60%. Mitch and Nick. McMahon and Grossman did it. Not even close. So think about the Bears' success. Think about their history here. And think about who was the quarterback at the time they won or came close to winning. The quarterback had no influence on anything. They just needed somebody out there to play. They didn't need 4,000 yards. The Bears have never gotten that, by the way, in one season from a quarterback yet. They're the only team in the NFL to not do it. They didn't need 30, 40 touchdowns. They didn't need Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. They needed their defense to step up. Do you realize what I'm saying here? Again, think about how the game is today versus the Bears' history with quarterbacks. The Bears have won without a good quarterback. They've never had a good quarterback. I mean, we're talking passer ratings in the 70s consistently. The best one of the bunch, believe it or not, is Mitchell Trubisky, 95. That's a high rating. Nick Foles is at 82 right now. The years the Bears succeeded, they had nothing. They had no production out of that spot. And you know what? They still won. Look at all these guys' records. Rex Grossman, 13-3. Jim McMahon, 11-0 that year. Trubisky, 12-4. Nick Foles, 2-1. Quarterbacks win with the Bears, but they have really no say-so in how it's done. They're just there to win the games. And every year the Bears have been successful. Every year they've contended for a Super Bowl. They've had their defense step up in a big way, a historic way. 2018, 36 takeaways, historic. 2006, look at that roster that they had. Urlacher, Briggs, Mike Brown, Charles Tillman. My goodness. 1985, Dan Hampton, Richard Dent. I mean, there were so many different pieces. Each year the Bears were good. This year you could argue the same. Kyle Fuller, Roquan Smith, Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks. When you study the history of this organization and you look at them today, there are a lot of similarities, a lot more than you think. We were so focused on the quarterback controversy. We were so focused on Mitch versus Nick. But I think we were all wrong. We should be focused on this team's identity. Sunday proved it. They're a defensive team. It does not matter who their quarterback is. They win, they lose because of their defense. 3 takeaways on Sunday. Think about this. What happens when the Bears force a takeaway? Nick Foles, or Trubisky, or whoever's the quarterback, gets excellent field position. Short field, easy to score, no pressure, and they come through. Mitch had 27 touchdowns in 2018. The Bears had 36 takeaways. Do the math. The other day, the Bears had an interception. Foles was inside the 25-yard line. Now, Foles threw a pick, but the point is, excellent field position. Again, that's how the Bears are going to win. Nothing to do with quarterback play. We were all focused on the wrong thing. I read you those numbers. I know it might be shocking to some. I mean, we regard certain players and we put them on such a high pedestal. But when you really look at the numbers, there's not much there. I'm a fan of Jim McMahon. But the guy had a completion percentage under 60%, and he had an 83 passer rating. That's all right. That's about average. Rex Grossman. I don't think anyone likes him, but the point is, the Bears went 13-3. He had to face Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. Rex Grossman. Mitch Trubisky, 2018. I firmly believe that team was a Super Bowl contender. That would have been Mitch doing it with a 95 passer rating. Those numbers are good, but when your defense has 36 takeaways, what do you know? Short field, easy to score, no pressure. You know your defense will take care of you. When you play with no pressure, you're going to perform better. Common sense. So Sunday proved a lot. It may not have cemented Nick Foles as the right quarterback. I still believe there's no difference. You could put in Trubisky or Foles, you're going to get the same result. If there's a tie, the tie should go to Trubisky because he's younger and still has an opportunity to improve. But that's besides the point. What we saw on Sunday is what we've seen from this Bears organization since their inception in the 1920s. Defense. That's how they're going to win. They will live and die by defense. They will live and die by takeaways. I hate to say it, but it's true. You're going to tell me the Bears would have won that game if they had 0 takeaways? I don't think so. Even 1? Probably not. The Bears needed all 3 of them. And they got the job done. And that's a word of warning for the future. We don't need to scrutinize the quarterback play. We don't need to scrutinize the offense. I know it's all about Matt Nagy and his play calling. We could sit here and criticize that back and forth, but let's look at the real picture here. Let's look at the Bears' identity. Let's talk about how they win and how they really lose. Should the offense be contributing more? Should they be a bigger factor in the equation? 100% yes. The Bears shouldn't be relying on the defense to force turnovers and even score points in some cases. That is the offense's job, no question, no doubt. But that's not what's happening. The Bears are heavily reliant on their defense now. They bought in. This is what they've chosen to buy into. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's the case. That's what we've seen. So now it's up to them to continue with that. They have an identity. Can they hold on to it? You can't switch an identity a couple of more weeks in here. It's week 5, week 6. You have to know where you stand as a team. I think they do. I think they know. You know what? It's all about the defense. Does not matter who the quarterback is. And that's true. I saw numbers today. Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles are essentially the same still. Nothing's gotten better. You could try and frame it all you want. You could spin it all you want. Nothing's gotten better or different. There hasn't been improvement. Mitch made a couple of comebacks. Foles did the same. The Bears are always winning when it comes down to the last possession and the defense comes through. That's how the Bears win football games. Think about it all year. Detroit, New York, Carolina with the interception. That's how the Bears win football games. Tampa Bay. They have a formula. May not be the prettiest one, but it gets the job done. They score. They don't play aggressively. They're passive after they score and get up by some points. The other team's going to trail and come back. And usually the opponent will have the ball on the last play of the game. And it's up to the Bears defense to come through. That puts a lot of pressure on them, but so far they've risen up to the challenge. So why not keep doing it? Why not continue to believe in them? That's how this team operates. That's how they work. It may not lead to blowout wins. It may not lead to season-defining wins. Name me a win in which you thought for certain the Bears were going to come out on top. You can't. Every game the Bears have played in, there's been worry. There's been a twinge of fear. You thought to yourself, I don't know if they're going to pull this out. Don't lie, that's true. Look at all the games they've played in. There hasn't been a blowout. There hasn't been a definitive win. But that's okay. Because we know who the Bears are now. They know themselves. They know who they are. They know how they can win games. That's all that matters. They need to beat teams down. If they face a powerful offense, their goal is to disrupt them as much as possible. They tell Nick Foles, do the same thing you've been doing. We will disrupt them and have them play to our level, play to your level. It may not be the most conventional strategy, but every time the Bears have been good, that's what they do. Look at the history. That's what they do. The most recent years in which the Bears have been highly successful, they've had quarterbacks who've had passer ratings under 90. Mitch is the only exception. What does that tell you? Put 2 and 2 together. It tells you that this team is a defensive-oriented team. That's their identity. And there's nothing wrong with it. It may be ugly. It may be tough to watch. It may make you doubt in their ability to win that game. But in the end, they always come through. And until we get to a point where the defense can't handle that pressure, there's nothing to complain about. They're winning. Foles and Trubisky are essentially interchangeable. There is no difference as to who you start in that position. That's been on full display. If you tell me no, I argue, look at the last drive of every game. Who has the football? Who's making the stop? Every time around, it's the defense having to bail out the offense, not scoring enough points. When Trubisky was there, that was the case. Foles is here now, same case. Saw it on Sunday. Saw it on Thursday against Tampa. So that proves to me, it should prove to you, that this is a defensive-oriented team. That's their identity. They're not Baltimore. They're not Kansas City. They don't have a quarterback throwing 400-plus yards every game with 5 touchdowns. They don't have many offensive weapons besides Allen Robinson. It doesn't matter. They find ways to win. And I'll tell you one thing. Come playoff time, when you do face a high-powered offense for a one-game, winner-takes-all matchup, I like the Bears in those situations. The Bears can easily disrupt a great offense. It's much harder for a great offense to overcome a disruptive defense. The Bears are in the right here. And based on history, they're following in their roots. I have no issue with that. Every time the Bears have been elite, it's been because of their defense. And right now, that's continuing. And it could lead them to a Super Bowl. More to come here on Sports Talk Chicago. My interview with Mark Medina comes up next, so stay tuned.